I think that pretty much everybody on planet Earth right now is feeling the shifts that are happening every day. I think every time you open the news, or if you dare to, or you talk to your neighbor, or you go to the grocery store, or whatever, you're hearing things that are saying that the world isn't the same way it used to be. I feel like COVID was the beginning of a shift, and now we are right in the middle of the shift that Ra Uru Hu talked about in 2027. Again, I don't like to get into prophecies because that does sound a little out there. But having said that, watching everything unfurl and unfold in front of us on the world stage and in so many other places leaves you with very little chance to explain it away. But we're lucky in some ways because we do have this information to guide us through. The information of human design was brought here by Ra Uru Hu. For the main point was to understand that to be your own authority means that you don't listen to what everybody else is doing and saying. You find out for yourself. You figure it out for yourself. You decide for yourself. There's also the concept of being in your body because it has all the secrets that you need to get you to walk forward in the path that is designed specifically for you. And while those subjects are very important for our journey forward, today I'm going to slip into a new subject, something that came to my awareness by somebody who left a comment. And the comment was concerning the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. And so I looked at that, and what it did give me was a crumb on a trail. And the trail led me to some pretty interesting insights into the cycles of Neptune and how they relate to the United States. The reason why we talk about the United States is because we know at this point, the United States, whatever happens there, happens to everybody in the world. And we see that happening every single day right now in 2025. And so, if something's happening in the United States, in some ways, it is happening to many people in the world because it has become the superpower of the world. Denying that fact is a disservice to everyone. And just like all other countries in the world, every country that is developed comes with a birth chart. First, I'd like to say that I'm not a historian, and so I'm not pretending to know so much about history. But I do find out as much as I need to in order to talk about it. And if I do make a mistake with the historical facts, please forgive me, because what I really want to talk about is the cycle of Neptune and how it's affecting the chart of the United States. The United States was formed on July 4th, 1776. And the chart I'm going to be using will be the one that is at 510. There's another one that has a Gemini rising, but I'm going to be using the Sagittarius rising. And that seems to be the one that's more commonly used. I want to keep this as simple as possible because there's no point in getting into a bunch of details and going off on a tangent. Ultimately, the most important thing is to look at this cycle and see how it's affecting the United States and in est affecting the world order. So if you look at the midheaven in general, we're looking at the highest point at which we can sort of ascend. In some ways, you can see it as your public view, and we could say what the public sees from a country, those types of things. But generally, based on the house system you're using, if you're using a whole sign house, you're going to have the midheaven be placed in a different house. It doesn't necessarily always have connection to the 10th house. If we use the Placidus, the midheaven begins the 10th house, which really represents the leaders, the representatives of government, CEOs. So this is what we're really looking at. This is like everybody who's running the country is the 10th house. Now, if you look at the opposite house to the 10th house, we get the 4th house. And the 10th house is always going to be in opposition to the 4th house, which is the people. This is the land. This is food. This is our most sacred place, that type of thing. Basically, it's talking about the government and the people and the difference between the two. And if there are afflictions to a chart, then that would show that there could be issues with, how the government's run and how the people are working with it. Then you bring Neptune into the mix, and Neptune is representing the democratic political movements. And this is not a party. This is just the actual democracy, you could say, of voting somebody in. This is also the fluctuation of popular opinions, influence, and the interests of people in popular institutions. Now, when things are happening to, you could say, afflict it, which means something that is opposing it. You have uprisings, discontent, ill feelings between superiors and inferiors, waves of fluctuating sensationalism, and political instability. So what happens is the government can lose control when things get dodgy or things get difficult when you have the 10th house being afflicted. Since about 2011, 2012, we've had Neptune moving into Pisces, where it is at home. And after all that time, it's finally starting to move into Aries. Now, Aries is a completely different sign for Neptune, and so it's going to be a different energy. This is going to happen where it's officially going to move into Aries just for a little while, basically, because it will retrograde back into Pisces again and finish it out. But then for 2026, it's going to always be in Aries, and that's sort of going forward. It's going to move into 0 degrees Aries on March 31st, 2025. Now, I want to bring in a little bit of the human design as soon as I sort of describe the astrology, and I'm really trying to describe the astrology in a way where it's as basic as it can be. Obviously, we can talk about more information for hours about this ingress of Neptune into Aries because it's a big deal. But like I said, I want to keep it simple so that we can sort of follow through and find out the significance of it as a whole. The important thing to know about 0 degrees Aries is it's called the Aries point. And what that means is that it is one of those kind of really hot spot energies. This is energies to get things moving. Sometimes it's called a critical degree. And then it's also called a world point, which is about things really shifting. Aries is cardinal, so that means the opposition, Libra, is cardinal as well. And that's the one I'm really caring about. Because if you look at the United States chart with the Sagittarius rising, we get a Libra at 1 degree midheaven. And this is a point that for me looks like a hot spot. So let's look at the midheaven of the US and see how historically it has become active at the same time when we had major world events happen. If we look at the United States beginning in 1776, and we look at Neptune, where it was when it was birthed, the United States was birthed, and when it is moving into an opposition, which is considered a stressful event. The only aspects that I'm interested in are going to be the conjunction and also the opposition. The first opposition that came after the United States was born was in 1861. And in 1861, there was obviously the Civil War. And you can look at all the details about how that happened and what it did for the country and those types of things. And so that was a big time, a pivotal time. So the Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865. I will talk about the human design gates and kind of a little bit of the information about the themes that they may have been going through as a country at that particular time and the themes that are going to be reactivated. The next activation that happened is, first of all, we had a Neptune return, which happened on, surprisingly, right almost exactly at the time when we had World War II happening. And that was on September 1st, 1939. And because all planets retrograde, we know that Neptune is not always going to be, when it does a return, it's going to come back and forth over that one point, usually a few times. What's really interesting is that on September 1st, 1939, Neptune was literally at 29 degrees Virgo. And the birth of the US, Neptune was at 25 degrees Virgo. So very, very synchronistic. Now let's move on. December 7th, 1941, part of World War II, there was a horrific event that happened, and that was called Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, in many ways, shifted the war because up until that point, the US didn't really want to be involved. But that was a turning point in that things completely changed. At that point, Neptune was almost exactly opposite where it was when the American Civil War broke out. It was at 29 degrees 42 Virgo. And that's completely opposite to Pisces 29, and I think it was 2958 when the Civil War broke out. So again, a pivotal point that was really connected to the midheaven, which is at 1 degree Libra, a world point, a point of power, and how things shifted considerably. Now, fast forward to 2025, and now we're in a situation where that point is being reactivated, as I said, end of March. Now, of course, because Neptune has a very long cycle, it's going to make its rounds back and forth over a certain point, and how it plays out in the world based on that point being activated is something we really can't predict. But it is an influx of energy for sure that is pretty obvious that it is connected completely to the cycle of the US. Now, it could be connected to the cycles of a lot of other countries. I've only put my emphasis on this particular energy in this particular chart. So based on this chart, it shows the midheaven is gate 46, line 2, and this is called the prima donna, which is very interesting in that it is about being determined to succeed and this ability to keep pushing the limits. It is about, I'm going to continue on my way to get what I need to get, to do what I need to do. And if that offends you, that's your problem. That's not my problem. That is the exaltation. In detriment, it's talking about this concept of believing that you have succeeded long before you actually have. This is abstract energy, so it is experiential energy. It is lived life energy. And if you look at the gate 46, we could say that this is the body of the people and how the people are successful. So there's this perspective of really pushing your way through, getting what you need to get, being successful, and not really worrying about other people. And that is how you're continue to move forward to have the synchronicity, the luck, and all those types of things that can come with the gate 46. But we know that if you can get luck with the gate 46, there's also the duality, and that is that you do not get the luck that you want. And the other side of the detriment is this concept of believing that you already have achieved the success and that because of that, you should be treated like the success that you are. So this is in a lot of ways, we could say gate 46, line 2 in detriment is the whole concept of fake it until you make it. And so this is the duality of the midheaven of the United States. And we also have the opposition where we would have Neptune, and that's going to be at gate 25 where Neptune is right now. And, it moves through different lines. And so to have a perfect opposition to gate 46, line 2, it's going to be gate 25, line 2. And that is completely opposite because this is individual energy. This is called the existentialist, which is in the now. So look at this whole perspective of you have this chart where you have the government, the leaders, all the other, the people in power, they're all in the 10th house. And below in the 4th house, we have all the regular folk, all the people who make the country. And we have this duality up in top, up in the 10th house. We have this belief that we have succeeded, that we're going to succeed and we're going to move forward the way we want to. And even if we haven't made it yet, we're going to fake it until we make it. And then you have the people below where they're talking about the moment, in the moment, the now. What is the truth in the now? But when you have this disconnect where the leaders have one perspective and the people below have a different perspective, well, that's when you have an opposition, which is where we're moving into an opposition. That's always talking about the disconnect or connect based on what is actually happening. So if the leaders believe, yes, we're being successful, things are going really well, we're being, we're getting ahead, we're doing what we need to do, and then the people believe the same concept, then everything's great. But when we have this total disconnect, which is an opposition, because Neptune is kind of bringing this energy to say that there is something different. So from this perspective, we have Neptune pointing at the truth in the now, the existential now, and the of what's actually happening, and it's completely detached from what's happening in the 10th house. Now, if you look at gate 25 as an energy of its own, this is called universal love. It says that because something exists, it deserves to be loved, and we love universally. And so this concept of loving everything just because it is what Neptune brings in gate 25. But we know that the duality is hating everything that is just because it is. And that's a potential as well. And we can also bring in the other gates that are connected to these energies. Gate 46 is connected to gate 29, and gate 25 is connected to gate 51. So if you look at the 25-51 channel, this is bringing some level of competition into the mix. So this is bringing competitiveness. The 29-46 is being in the flow or not being in the flow. It is being healthy or not being healthy based on how you're aligning with the real world or your flow. So in other words, if you are not aligning with your flow, now think about it as a country, if you're not aligning with your flow, because this is a tantric channel, the 4629, If you're not aligning with it, then it becomes an unhealthy line. Now, so sometimes the 4629 channel can be related to people who have a lot of health issues, or they can have no health issues at all. And the difference is, one is where you're not walking in your energy, going towards your destiny and being aligned with your trajectory, because the 2946 energy is about having an internal GPS that is so advanced that it's really giving you an indication by how healthy you are, your health, on how close you are to your destiny, your trajectory, where you're going to go. So if you look at the current president of the United States, you'll see that he has gate 29 in line 3 defined, and it's defined by Mars, which means that it's going to be an aggressive energy that's pushing ahead, getting what you want to get. This is connecting with the midheaven of the USA. What this brings is a full 2946 channel, which is bringing a flow of energy. Now, this is a connection which he's bringing into the flow of the energy of the 10th house, or the energy of the midheaven, you could say, based on whatever chart you're using, or if you're using Placidus or you're using whole signs. But ultimately, he's bringing this energy of flow in a certain way. This is completely connected to the health of the government. This is completely connected to the health of the country in general, because it's going to be in play where his flow has become the flow of the country. Now, is this positive, or is this negative? And it really depends upon who you talk to. But ultimately, this is the flow that potentially the country is within. Now, again, this can be something that's going to bring them into a healthy energy or an unhealthy energy. This is going to bring them into receiving luck, having beneficial things happen, serendipity, things that are good happening. Or alternatively, it's going to lead into this concept of not having good luck, things not turning in your favor, and not being in the right place at the right time to receive benefits. So when you have this kind of flow energy, we're talking about the flow of this country and this leader that is flowing with the universal flow, because nothing is on its own. We always have to move into the universal flow. That's how we make our connections. That's how we know different people. That's how we get opportunities in life. We are in the flow of the universe. So we can be in our own flow, and that's always going to be the most important thing to start with. Be in your own flow. That's where your gifts are. But then that flow is going to merge with the universal flow. And the question is, how is this energy merging with the universal flow? And that's something that we will see play out. One other thing of note that is quite interesting about, if you look at the US chart, the chart is basically, you could say it's got a little bit of everything. So especially for leadership. So if you look at, for instance, the election cycles that happened, and that they were quite divided, like very, very closely divided, as you have had, close to 50% on both sides. And so somebody won by just, a little bit. You look at the chart of the United States, and you see that the 731 channel is the most prominent channel. And this brings this democratic kind of energy, the people being part of the country in that they are telling the leaders what they need. And so it is about democracy. So it's very, very democratic in how it's played out. Now, when you look at the other perspective, you have a hanging gate 45. Now, that is about tribal energy. This is a tribal leader. So we see that there is potential for the tribal energy to be part of this country, but it's not something that is always there. And so then you have a tribal leader, like the current president, coming in with the tribal energy, the 2145, sort of stepping into that leadership role. It's bringing the total tribalness to the energy, because this is a complete channel. This is a will channel, a will center channel. This is a material channel. So we know that this particular energy in relationship to the country, and in relationship to how the country is sort of focused, is going to bring this concept of the will center, and this is a material world. Whereas if you look at the 31-7, that's going to bring this democratic energy about what do the people want, what can we do to improve the country, and those types of things. Now, neither of these leaderships are perfect in any way, because when you look at the logical democratic leadership, you're looking at something that is very connected to needing more money. There is no motor that is connected to logical energy, which means other than, of course, the formats, but we're just looking at, for instance, the left and right sides and how abstract energy has a motor, it has a solar plexus, and then we also have the tribal energy, which is going to be all around the will center. And then we look over at logic and you think, okay, well, what do they have? Well, they do have the sacral and the root, but everybody else does. And so in that way, they don't have as much energy. And so we have this lobbying type of thing. We have a lot of this trying to get money for the leadership, trying to get money to advance a leader. When you look at the tribal energy, we know that it's always going to be focused on material abundance. So this is going to be the full focus. We always know that the tribe is about being supported by the leader, and the leader does the work, and the tribe just listens to what the leader has to say. They do not give input to the leader. And this is the expectation, is that if you are a tribal leader, you will be able to do your work as long as you're supporting your people, then that is when you will be very successful. But if you're not supporting your people, then that is when things are going to shift. So when we have things happening where it's showing that things are not as healthy as they should be, and you continue to move as a country, we'll move back to a country, you continue to move in a way where it is not your path, it is not your trajectory, then we have more of an unhealthy perspective. And this is the 10th house, an unhealthy perspective of government, those types of things. And on the other side, the 2551 is, this is where you're going to jump in and say, no, this can't be the way it is. And we're going to go through the point of the mystical path where you don't really know how it's going to turn out, and you just jump in and you hope for the best. And that's a 2551 channel. This is a channel of shock. This is a channel of things that kind of come out of the blue that you don't expect to happen. What this bodes to is shocking before and after events that nobody sees coming, but they sort of come organically out of the blue. And I think that's the biggest key. This is an organic type of thing that just kind of, the energy builds and then it comes to fruition and becomes what it's going to be. And so this is really showing us that things are going to shift dramatically in some way. Now, this doesn't mean anything bad. It doesn't mean anything good. It just means that we are in an energy point where we know that the energy is shifting dramatically and that it can't continue on the same path it is. And so if we look at things being offline or off the trajectory, how are we going to bring it back into alignment? And that's where we get the 2551, this channel of kind of shocking things to bring them back into alignment. Now, this is just one of the major planets or the slow moving planets that are activating something that's shifting the collective. Uranus is going to make a big change into moving into Gemini, which I talked about in another video, and that's going to happen in July. And we also have Pluto that has just moved into Aquarius as well. Saturn and Neptune are going to conjunct or come together in, I believe, February 20th, 2026. So we've got a bunch of energy that is starting to play out in a big way. And when the major players get involved, that's when things really shift considerably. What that says is that we are moving through change. We are moving through a time where we haven't seen this before. Nobody on Earth has ever seen this type of energy, especially with Neptune and Pluto. And now, as we move into the new time, it's really about kind of connecting with your truth, your inner knowing, and your authority so that you can navigate the changes based on what you believe is right for you, as opposed to following the crowd sometimes, which may not always work to your advantage, believing everything that people are saying without doing your own homework. Those types of things will not serve you well. Right now, it's time to find your own answers, to find your own truth. And that means to understand that what you believe may not necessarily be what other people believe, and it's okay to swim against the current. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean it's true. So it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to unfold and unpack, and I will unpack more information as I see it coming through the pipelines or anything that I think is valuable to share with you. And I hope this was helpful, and until next time, take care and bye for now.